Men are so simple and so predictable that anyone who deceives will always find someone willing to be deceived.
Manipulating is not noble, it's not fair, it's not clean, and of course, it's not something you should do to just anyone. But in this world, some people deserve it. People who lie, who fake, who take advantage of others' innocence to move forward without scruples. People who, when they sense weakness in others, don't feel compassion. They see opportunity, an opportunity to use you, drain you, and then forget about you. Has this ever happened to you? Have you felt someone approached you wearing a mask just to take something from you? Have they made you feel like you were wrong even when you knew you were right? Have they confused you so much you ended up apologizing for things you didn't do? If so, what you experienced wasn't a misunderstanding. It was manipulation. And if it happened once, it can happen again. Unless you're prepared. Because if you're not, you'll be ruined by those who are anything but good. Most people still believe that being good is enough. That if you're clear, transparent, and empathetic, you'll receive the same in return. But no. Anyone who steps into the game of power thinking everything is clean has already lost. Because while you hesitate, others act. While you ask what's allowed, they've already decided what they'll allow you to do. So then, is everything fair in self-defense? Is it ethical to learn to manipulate if it's to protect yourself from manipulators? Is it okay to use deception against those who already play dirty? Of course it is, because if you don't, you'll never be able to defend yourself against what you don't understand, and even less against what you can't even name. That's why today, on The Sophist, you're going to discover the 10 most subtle, dark, and effective manipulation techniques. And to do that, we'll begin with the most discreet, almost invisible ones, those that operate in silence and go unnoticed. But as we move forward, we'll descend into deeper, darker levels, where the most invasive, dangerous, and psychologically destructive strategies are hidden. Techniques capable of wearing down, dominating, even breaking the most unshakable mind. But be careful. This isn't about learning to manipulate in order to do harm, nor about turning yourself into a predator. It's about knowing these techniques so you stop being the useful fool everyone takes advantage of, to detect when someone is playing with you, to reclaim control of the narrative, and above all, to learn how to set boundaries in a world that does not respect those who don't know how to enforce them. Because sometimes the only antidote to manipulation is learning to manipulate the manipulator and beating them with their own weapons in their own game. The first technique is called covert psychological debt, and it consists of offering something the other person never asked for. It could be a favor, a gesture, or a detail that seems generous and on the surface expects nothing in return. But in reality, it's a strategic seed, because the human mind hates feeling indebted, and when someone gives you something without being asked, your natural impulse is to give something back, to restore the balance. It's a form of manipulation that doesn't impose, threaten, or demand. It just waits and watches. An emotional trap disguised as courtesy. You can use this technique, for example, at work. Help someone unexpectedly with something important without showing off. Don't remind them of the favor, don't ask for anything, just wait. And when the moment comes, they'll feel the need to repay you. Even before you say a word, they'll do it to relieve the internal discomfort you elegantly created. But be careful. If you notice someone starts giving you too much without any clear reason, don't take it as pure generosity. They might be planting something. And if they later try to emotionally cash in, don't feel guilty. You can calmly respond, "I appreciate it, but I didn't ask you to do that. I don't owe you anything. You did that because you chose to." Be clear, whoever gives without asking permission has no right to demand anything later. The second technique, even more subtle, is psychological mirroring. It's based on a simple but incredibly effective idea. People tend to let their guard down with those who resemble them. If someone imitates your gestures, your way of speaking, your opinions, or even your emotional rhythm, your mind interprets it as connection. You feel affinity, closeness, complicity, and as a result, you relax, you trust more, you open up. But many times, you're not connecting with anyone. You're being mirrored strategically. It's a camouflaged copy, designed to adapt to you and feel familiar. And the more familiar someone seems, the more willing you are to trust, and therefore, the more vulnerable you are to being manipulated. Because it's always easier to manipulate someone who trusts you than someone who sees you as a stranger. That's the trap. It's not real connection. It's a calculated construction to lower your defenses. You can use this if you need to influence someone who's closed off or defensive. Don't come in with your own style. Come in with theirs. Match your language to theirs, your posture to theirs, your energy to what they're projecting. Subtly, not forced. The person will start to see you as familiar, and that makes it easier for them to accept your influence. But if you're on the receiving end, and someone you barely know starts agreeing with you too much on everything, too quickly, be suspicious. Change the topic. Create dissonance. Test them and see what they do. If they keep adapting, if they seem too comfortable in every terrain, they're probably not being genuine. It's a manufactured reflection designed to infiltrate your mind. The third technique, ancient yet powerful, is silence. Not passive silence, but silence used to pressure, to unbalance. In an argument, in a negotiation, in an intimate conversation, the one who knows how to stay quiet at the right moment holds the power. Because silence creates discomfort, and that discomfort pushes the other to say too much, to justify themselves, to reveal what they shouldn't, to seek validation. The manipulator knows this, so they stay silent, not because they have nothing to say, but because they know you won't handle the void. You can use it to shift the power in a tense conversation. Instead of responding to provocation or defending yourself, stay quiet, breathe. Let the other person sit with their words hanging in the air. That's when they start to falter. But if you're the one receiving that silence as punishment, don't fall into the trap. Don't fill the silence with unnecessary explanations. If someone throws a harsh phrase at you and then goes quiet, waiting for you to crumble, hold their gaze. Don't hand over the control, because the one who can endure silence can endure the game. There are manipulations that don't aim to convince you, but to trap you. The fourth technique is called closing off options. It consists of giving you the illusion of choice, when in reality, all the options are designed to benefit the manipulator. It's a cage with two doors, but both lead to the same place. And because you believe you've chosen, you don't even realize you've been conditioned. This technique is used daily. A boss tells you, "Would you rather stay this afternoon or come in Saturday morning?" He doesn't offer to let you off early. He doesn't offer not to do it at all. Just two options that already assume you'll sacrifice your time. And because you choose one, it feels fair. Or, in a relationship, we can end things. Or you can admit you were wrong. There's no space for a middle ground. Everything is framed so that you lose. But think you're making a decision. This technique is constantly used in marketing and sales. A waiter approaches your table and asks you with a smile, "Would you like red or white wine with your meal?" And you choose one, without realizing you never asked for wine. But by choosing, you're already in the game, and in either case, you're paying for something you didn't want. If you want to use this technique, first define the outcome you want. Then design two paths that lead to it, but with different forms. The other person will feel like they're in control, but you'll be shaping the result. And if it's used on you, respond, "Is there an option outside that framework? Because neither of those work for me." Naming the manipulation destroys it. The fifth technique is reframing. It's the art of changing the interpretation of a situation to influence how the other person perceives it. You don't change the facts, only the context, because what matters is not what happened, but how you make them feel about it. And the one who controls the emotional frame controls the reaction. For example, someone criticizes you and you don't defend yourself. Instead, you say, "I know you're saying this because you care." You've just turned an attack into a supposed sign of affection. You've stolen their intent and transformed it. And now, if they insist, they look insensitive. Or imagine you arrive late and they call you out for being disrespectful. You reframe, "Being late isn't ideal, but I chose to come with a clear head instead of bringing more tension." You've given new meaning to a negative action. You can do the same if someone tries to blame you. Don't deny the guilt. Change the frame. Reword it. And if you see someone constantly doing this to you, twisting the story so everything seems to be your fault, so you're always the one justifying yourself, shut it down. Ask out loud, "Are you sure that's the only way to interpret this?" Force them to leave the script. The sixth technique is one of the dirtiest. It's called guilt programming. It's about making you feel that if you don't do what they want, you're betraying your own values. They don't pressure you aggressively. They pressure you through your own identity. They say things like, "I didn't expect this from you," with how generous you've always been. If you really lived by your values, you'd do this. You're no longer making a free decision. You're trying not to betray the image you have of yourself. That's the trap. The manipulator doesn't threaten you. They act disappointed. You can use it if you know someone's beliefs well. If you know they see themselves as a fair person, say, "I know you always do the right thing. That's why I trust you'll help me." You're not demanding. You're reminding them who they think they are, and that internal pressure will do the rest. But if someone uses this on you, don't react emotionally. Recognize the pattern. And if you notice that someone always appeals to your morals to get something out of you, look them in the eyes and say, "I'm not doing this just to prove who I am. If you respect me, you shouldn't need me to prove it." Guilt only manipulates you if you accept it. The seventh manipulation technique is called intermittent reinforcement. It's a form of control that doesn't operate through logic, but through emotion. It doesn't try to convince you with arguments, but destabilizes you with constant, unpredictable changes. It works by alternating moments of affection, approval, or attention, with moments of rejection, coldness, or silence. But there's no clear pattern. One day, you receive affection. The next, indifference. And just when you start thinking about walking away, a positive signal returns and makes you stay. That irregularity confuses your mind and wears down your judgment, because when you don't know what to expect, you enter a state of alert. And when you're in alert mode, you're much easier to control. Manipulation works because without realizing it, you start depending on those emotional crumbs to feel safe. You see this clearly in romantic relationships. Someone fills you with validation, attention, and love, and suddenly takes it all away without explanation. They pull back. They become cold, unavailable. But just when you're about to break things off or distance yourself, the gesture returns, the word, the closeness, and now you're in a cycle where you never know when they'll love you or when they'll disappear. And because the bond never fully breaks, you stay trapped, always waiting, always alert. This also happens in friendships, family dynamics, even with bosses and employees. If you want to apply it responsibly, alternate moments of recognition with calculated distance, not to punish, but to establish emotional hierarchy. But if you notice someone is making you anxious with this pattern of validation and withdrawal, step away. Don't wait for the next caress. Remember, what's inconsistent isn't deep. It's addictive, but not authentic, and emotional addiction is a chain disguised as desire. The eighth technique is even more aggressive. It's known as induced insecurity or emotional triangulation. And that's exactly what it is, subtly introducing a third figure, real or imagined, to make you feel like you're in competition. It's not about asking you for more attention or demanding anything directly. It's about making you feel that someone else is getting what you want, that there's another person, close, present, or just mentioned, who's doing it better, who's closer, more appreciated, more desired. And then, without anyone asking you to, you react. You start trying harder, seeking approval, competing for something no one told you was even on the table. That's how you end up in an emotional war that was never declared, because you don't need to be attacked directly to be manipulated. All it takes is planting doubt, making you feel like you might lose something. And once you feel that, you'll do anything to get it back, even if no one is actually taking it from you. That's the power of this technique. It moves you without touching you, controls you without saying a word. This happens when someone says, "I don't want to compare, but Ignacio never gives me this kind of grief." Or when they mention another person just when you're feeling insecure. "With so-and-so, I felt more understood." There it is. You're no longer talking about the problem. Now you're fighting not to be replaced. If you want to use this technique to set boundaries without arguing, you can drop lines like, "There are people with whom things just flow, without so much tension." You're not attacking directly, but you're creating a silent comparison that unsettles. But if someone uses it on you, and you notice that every time you get emotionally close, someone else shows up in the conversation, don't enter the battle. Don't compete. Say, if you need to compare, maybe you're not valuing what's right in front of you. Manipulation stops working when you refuse to play the game you never agreed to. The ninth technique is one of the most brilliant and also one of the most dangerous: idea implantation. This isn't about convincing or forcing you. There's no pressure, no direct imposition. What there is something much more subtle. They make you believe that what you're doing was your own decision, that what you think, what you want, or even what you fear came from within. But in reality, it was planted, little by little, carefully, with precision. Because true manipulation doesn't impose an idea, it cultivates it. It inserts it into your mind so naturally that when you act, you do so believing it was your own choice, when in fact, it was the result of an influence you never saw coming. This is done by subtly repeating an idea, connecting it to values the other person already holds with phrases like, "You've always liked doing things your own way. You're the kind of person who doesn't let anyone hold them back. I know you can't stand being left behind." And what follows is a suggestion to buy, to accept, to give in. But it no longer sounds like pressure. It sounds like internal coherence. You weren't pushed. You were guided into thinking that direction was inevitable. You can use it in a team setting, for example. Instead of imposing a solution, you start saying things in meetings like, "I'm sure whatever you decide will be the smartest move, and knowing how you think, I can already imagine where this is headed." Then you simply drop the idea you want, and watch as the group picks it up, as if it were their own. But if you sense it's being used on you, if someone starts repeating phrases that fit your identity too perfectly and then offers options that seem tailor-made for you, pause, ask yourself, did I really want this? Or did they just make me want it? And finally, the 10th technique, the most invisible, the most devastating, progressive emotional erosion. It doesn't happen overnight. It's a slow wearing down, micro-criticisms, tone changes, constant doubts. Nothing serious on its own. But when accumulated, it starts to break down your inner strength. It makes you feel like you always mess up, like you're never enough. And there comes a point where you no longer argue, no longer decide, no longer suggest. You just obey. Because they've worn you out. This is often seen in romantic relationships. At first, everything seems normal. But little by little, every gesture of yours is corrected. Every emotion minimized. There are no major fights, just a constant feeling of not being good enough. And without realizing it, you stop trying. This technique isn't shouted, it's executed in silence. If someone constantly makes you feel guilty, insufficient, or under scrutiny, walk away. Because control through emotional exhaustion is just as destructive as physical abuse, or more so, because it gets inside you and shuts you down from within. Now you know, these techniques exist, and they are used. They're not theories, they're real tools. And like any tool, they can hurt or protect. It all depends on who uses them and for what. Because if you don't understand how manipulation works, you'll end up giving in without realizing it, obeying, justifying yourself, believing it was your fault, when in reality, it was the script someone else wrote for you. Manipulating those who don't deserve it makes you a predator, but letting yourself be manipulated without resistance makes you a slave, a puppet for others to use. If you're ready to stop being the victim and start manipulating only those who deserve it, those who manipulate, who use, who trample without looking, write in the comments, "I manipulate the manipulator." Do it as a promise to yourself, as a turning point in your life where you decide to stop being emotionally manipulated and extorted by the dark-minded and the dark-hearted. And please don't let this video remain just theory. Turn it into a practical tool to transform and improve your life and the lives of others. And if you want to keep exploring the ideas of great thinkers, subscribe to the channel to stay updated with the latest videos from the Sophist. Because your mind is sacred territory, and no one will ever enter it again without your permission.